Today's water day here in Barra de Navidad. We're anchored in an estuary. It's funky in here. The water's really thick. So technically, we could run a water maker wherever we want, but the pre-filters would get really plugged up really fast. So the way around that, we buy water. We got about 75 gallons that came today. They just drop it off on the side of the boat. And then tomorrow they pick up the empties. We'll be out of here probably in a handful of days to another place where we can make water. This just gets us by for a while. Because we're sort of water users. We like showers. I may look like I'm a homeless vagabond, but I like to be clean. Hi, Brenda.
Hey. How's it going?
Good.
She just threatened me. Did you see that?
Did you guys see that? She threatened me.
In our last episode, Brenda went cuckoo for coconuts after checking out a secret beach. This time around, it's all hands on deck for some sail repair, and we stopped by one of my favorite taco stands in one of my favorite towns. Here in Barra de Navidad, it's a pretty great place to be for a while, for a lot of reasons. Town's super cute, we got great neighbors. There's a water taxi, live music almost every night, and tons of great tacos. But one of the best things is being here in the anchorage in the Lagoon. The water's funky, but it's flat calm, even with a pretty good breeze. So it's a nice place to get some stuff done. Most of the anchorages on this Pacific side of Mexico, they're pretty rolly. You got ocean swell that comes in, and you bounce around. So if you're trying to do some sort of work, it's not the easiest thing to do, but here it's calm, it's flat. So we've got some work to do. Today it's happening. And actually it's happening for Brenda. Our sails, they're giving us a little grief, especially our head sail right now. A lot of the stitching, especially on the UV cover, it's just disintegrated. So today it's sail repair in the Barra de Navidad Lagoon. And it's happening on the deck of the boat. And so, that head sail came down, Brenda's monster of a sewing machine came out, the shades got put up, and Brenda got to work. Because after nearly 12 years and 35,000 miles of use, this thing, it needed some love.
Very rotten. That was keeping our sail together.
But unfortunately, even with a whole bunch of progress made, Brenda's sewing machine got jammed, and it wouldn't turn over. So, we of course hopped in a taxi, headed to town, and took a break. Barra de Navidad is one of my favorite stops on the entire Pacific side of Mexico, and it's for good reason. It's a bright, colorful, vibrant town, and there always seems to be something going on. But just like most places in Mexico, the real action doesn't start until after the sun goes down. But once that sun does go down, there never seems to be a shortage of things to see and do. Most weekend nights, the town square, it's abuzz with activity. And if you're able to stay up well past cruisers midnight, that's when the interesting stuff happens. And just about every night of the week, there's some great live music to be heard. But best of all, some of my favorite taco stands in the entire world live in this little town. And this plate of 5 tacos al pastor, it's currently holding second place on my list of favorites.
Have you heard anything from Wolf lately?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
How's it been?
Yeah.
Well, where are those guys at now?
They're still in Tennessee.
We met them 2 years ago. But we haven't really.
That's Brad. And that's Sonny.
We're over 24-hour friends now.
Yeah.
We're attempting to fix a sewing machine that I know nothing about.
We just met Brad and Sonny last night. And look at that, they're over here trying to help us out. That says a lot about the cruising community. Great people everywhere. They actually have a Sailrite sewing machine as well, so they brought it over. So hopefully we can kind of match up how things are supposed to be set up. See if we can get Brenda's machine working. It's just jammed. And we don't know why.
It sounds like it's back in here. Pushing out when it binds.
Yeah.
There's a cam on the end of that thing right there.
It still locks in position.
Yeah.
Because this is the timing down here.
It sure sounds like it's
find the right one.
like
Even with all hands on deck, that monster didn't quite get fixed. But Brenda did find some things in obvious need of repair.
My sewing machine ring. I pierced a hole in it. That's a bummer, but I don't have any extra, so gotta fix it with a soldering iron. Thank you, 8th grade soldering class. Good as new.
Well, unfortunately, this is shaping up to be the year where we gotta work on everything all the time. Brenda's sewing machine, it's still not working. It needs some parts to make it right, and that means our head sail, it's not exactly finished yet. But we do have good news. Jason and Jenn, who you've seen in, well, tons of these videos, Jason's daughter just came down to visit, and that's good for a few reasons. Obviously, Jason gets to see his daughter. That's pretty great. But since we're kind of family, we get to see her too. That's pretty great. But also, she stuffed her suitcase with a bunch of boat parts for us sailors. Thanks, Danica. You're the best. I think we'll get into some of the parts she brought us, maybe in the next episode or so. But for today, I think we should go to Jason and Jenn's boat and show you what she brought them. She actually brought them down a new autopilot, because roughly 1,000 miles ago or so, their autopilot died and they've had to hand steer up this southern coast of Mexico. And the way the autopilot hooks up to their wind vane, I think it's pretty interesting. And you might also. So, I think we should hop in the dinghy and go to our neighbor's house. After a long 15 seconds in the dinghy, we made it to our friendly neighbors.
This is our monitor wind vane. We chose a monitor over some of the other wind vane options just because it seemed to fit clean on the back of the boat. We did the install ourselves. Everything fit perfectly right out of the box. It wasn't cheap, but it's a good system, I think, for us. So if we're sailing, this thing goes in here. We adjust this wheel here to go to the angle of the wind. If we're sailing upwind, the wind goes across here. This is just set to the leading edge, or the leading edge is set to the direction of the wind. And as the boat turns, this turns, which in turn puts pressure on the paddle down there, runs through the lines to a set of blocks. As the wind pipes up, there's more pressure that goes through the system. The paddle actually does all of the work. Very little pressure has to be on this thing. The paddle does all the work and it turns the tiller back and forth, which steers the boat. The first thing we ever do when we get out there is we set this thing up either for motoring or for sailing, because last thing we really want to do is steer the boat. It sucks. Because we have a tiller, there's really only a couple of different ways to get an autopilot set up for when we're powering. You could either set up some sort of a hydraulic ram that goes into a quadrant, or you can have one of these things, and in a traditional way that this is set up, this is mounted somewhere over here. The arm comes out and this is what steers the boat. The problem is with our boat and offshore, we have a lot of pressure that goes through the big barn door rudder, through the tiller, into this thing, and it'll burn this thing out really, really quickly. So our solution is we run this through the wind vane. The wind vane does all the work. You only need a couple of pounds pressure on the top of the wind vane, and it actually turns the boat, and it'll steer all day with one of these. To set this up, we attach it to the wind vane. I actually made this thing out of starboard material and bought this bracket from Fisheries in Seattle, and this little deal here, just screwed it in, and it mounts. This is the same cutout. I just used a cardboard blank and cut this. And then this installs up here in the same place where the sail does. We built a little bracket here. It's just, again, starboard to the rail, and I just adjust this so that it fits right on there. When we're at our course, I'll just hit auto and it'll start steering the boat. We can adjust it by going like this or going like this, different adjustment options. So essentially, as the boat's tracking through the water, this moves this thing, which moves the servo pendulum gear, which moves the paddle. The paddle puts all the pressure on these lines that go to the tiller, and it works really efficiently.
So for the last 1,000 miles or so, that hasn't worked.
Yeah, this thing died in Chiapas, and we hand steered all the way to Barra. We had my daughter visiting, and she brought down another one of these, and I think in the future we'd probably just have a backup. And so having a couple of these on board, it would be nice in case one of them blew up. But if you've got a tiller set up and you don't have a way to put some sort of a hydraulic ram or electric ram on your tiller that's going to be robust, then this is definitely an option. When we're sailing, we use the wind vane part with this, and it works really well. But in this area of the country, or this area of the world, sometimes there's not a lot of wind, or it's right on the nose and we just choose the motor because we're trying to get there. And so if that's the case, then when the wind vane isn't working, we had to hand steer, which was a real pain in the butt. You know, we came up with different ways of doing this. It was just like this, you know, this is 800 miles, 900 miles of steering just like this. Or, you know, I'd be like this and reading a book, steering the boat for 900 miles. It's kind of awful.
Nice job getting here, guys.
Thank you. it was pretty nice because we had our friends following us from behind, just to make sure that just to make sure that we were safe and things like that. Have you seen my racing stripe?
And with Danica in town, of course that calls for a family dinner.
You had to have an industrial.
We're making
Has it gotten better?
My recipe straight from Thailand. Tamarind sauce. I made it from tamarind that was already prepared. They already husked the pods, so I only had to deal with the actual fruit part.
Yeah, we talked about it.
So your sister's coming, right?
I said no.
You can change you can solder with it as well as.
So Danica brought us some mung beans from Denver when she came in last week, and this is like day 5 of growth, so that's going in the pad thai. It's going to be delicious.
Top it all off with some freshly sprouted bean sprouts and some chopped up peanuts. And Jenn made us some fully legit pad thai straight from Thailand, right here in the heart of Mexico.
No, they're still 3.
What?
Unless you can just scoop it in.
But that's about it for this episode. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Ooh, that's really good.